A lot of things happen on social media, and I think last week or no, last must have been last week or this week. I saw a graduation. The University of Lusaka was graduating students. Like NIPA also had a graduation. But there's one thing that really got my attention. So you see how people graduate and they post their photos, and yeah, for them it's just graduation. But then I saw one gentleman that shared his graduation photo, and his graduation photo had a story to it. Okay, it had a story, and maybe let me read the story for you. Let me look for it. I read you the story so you can understand exactly what inspired today's episode of this podcast. Let me read you the story so we're on the same page as we begin this podcast. Okay, so this is the story of this graduation. I'll read it and then I'll go into the story, okay? Said I got expelled from 2 universities because of drugs and alcohol. The rate at which I was drinking and using drugs would have led me to being in hospital, prison, or the mortuary. 4 years ago, I decided I needed help. Through my parents' and family support, I got clean and sober. I went back to school, and last week I graduated with a bachelor's degree in public health. This post was specifically made for anyone battling with an addiction or going through rough times. Please show them that it is possible to turn your life around. It is possible to build yourself back up. Don't be ashamed to start all over. Do not focus on your mistakes. Don't look at your age or time wasted. You have energy and health. That is all you need. Don't count your demons, count your angels. You are not the problem. Your addiction is what is causing problems in your life. To families and friends of those battling with addiction, I know it's painful and embarrassing, but please seek help for them. Don't give up. It is people like you that saved a junkie like me. As of now, I am back to doing what I love to do, which is helping addicts transition into sobriety. Yours, certified addiction recovery coach. Stay blessed. And then there's a love emoji. So that's, for me, that's why I said, you know what? We need to get this gentleman on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Daniel Mbazima.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so very much. I'm glad to be here.
Quite a story.
Yeah.
Quite a story.
Mhm.
Let's start from the very beginning.
Okay.
The very beginning.
Okay, so to start with, I was born in a Christian family, and my father happens to be a pastor. So you know what they say about pastors' children, eh?
Yeah, as a PK.
Yeah, as a PK. So yeah, all along I was raised up in the church, and my family was very supportive. Yeah, my parents also tried to make sure that I had the best of education that I could. My dad also did marketing back in the day, so he retired to venture into pastoral work. But education for him has always been the thing. And being the firstborn and the only son, I had the road to, take it up. So I completed grade 12 with very good grades, and I had the opportunity of going to study medicine in Russia. Yeah. So when I went to Russia for the first 3 years, everything was okay. My focus during those years was my academic and my spiritual life, and everything was moving really well. Up until I started with a bit of alcohol here and there. And for me, what happened is that in that moment, something that I did not know, which is something that a lot of Zambians do not know, began to happen to me. So just to get into it, there are 3 types of people that drink alcohol. Okay, so we have the first class. These are social drinkers. I'm talking about somebody who can have a 10,000 and drink 100 kwacha off. I'm talking about somebody who knows to say they have work the following morning and they'll choose not to drink, or somebody who can drink over watching a soccer game, and after that, that's it, they're done drinking. I'm talking about somebody who can go to the bar and not drink at all. Yeah, so those are the first class. But because what they take is a chemical substance, from time to time they do get drunk. But when they get drunk, it's nothing out of the ordinary. Nobody's complaining. It's just the usual. Like, yeah, he's drunk and everything, but life goes on. They're able to provide for the family, and their bills are set. Yeah. Then we have the second class. These are people that abuse alcohol. So for a person who abuses alcohol, they lack opportunities in life. And if you take such a person, you give them an opportunity, let's say you put them in school or you get them a job, they'll instantly stop. And then we have the third class, people like me and people like many others who are alcoholics. So what that means is I cannot control my intake of alcohol. Whenever I try to control it, I cannot enjoy it. And whenever I enjoy it, I cannot control it. So what happens is when I drink, it affects my finances, it affects my relationships, it affects, my family, it affects my occupation. In that moment, it was school, which was getting affected. And it affects everything around me. I begin to lose weight and all these things began to happen. So with the alcohol, because of what it was making me do, miss school and my grades were not really affected, but I sort of lost interest. Yeah, and because of that, I continued partying and drinking. And in the city that I was in, I began to attract a lot of attention. I was getting arrested, I was blacking out here and there. So as a result, I thought of quitting a bit, and I got introduced to other drugs. That's when the weed and the cocaine came in. It wasn't for long, but heading to my 4th year, I got expelled. So I came back. It was really devastating on my parents. I mean, they send you out there, and in that 4-year period, my friends have graduated. People are doing exceptionally well. Those are people that are left back home. So that was the first major thing that I ever did. Yeah. And as a result, they decided to give me another shot. Luckily, I got accepted at another university, which was a bit weird because if you get accepted at another university in Russia, you have to start from scratch. So when I went to this other university, all they told me to do was you just do a bit of language and then you continue from where you had ended, because I joined them in the middle of the semester. So I went to this university and I told myself, I said, look, I'm not going to party, I'm not going to hit the club, I'm not going to do anything, and I'm not going to have a big social circle. And I did that, but I did not get rid of my addiction. So when I went to this other university, my addiction progressed. And now I got introduced to other drugs. Now it was cocaine, it was heroin, it was ecstasy, it was a bunch of other pills, the diazepam and everything. And in that moment, I began to use and to drink even more. And by then, it was really, really bad. Like this time, the other university, few people knew to say I had a problem, but this time, like everybody knew. So the university gave me a couple of shots to work on myself, but I did not. So in that moment, like my addiction was really, really bad. And I got expelled for the second time, then I came back. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned you went to this university, and your primary focus from the very beginning was, to work on your academia, obviously.
Yes, yes.
But then also on your spiritual side.
Yes, yes.
What introduced you to the drugs and the alcohol? Talk to me about the point where. Okay, I won't ask what introduced you to alcohol, because alcohol, it's
Yes,
alcohol.
yes. Uh-huh.
But then the drugs, what was your first introduction to drugs?
Okay. It was out of curiosity. Yeah. Even my first drink, the first alcohol I ever touched and ever drank, was out of curiosity. So a lot of people start because of peer pressure and, other things and whatnot. But for me, it was just out of curiosity. I wanted to know what it feels like. And when I did, I'm not one of those people that will come and then say, no, I drank and then, I used drugs and it was bad. In the beginning, it was nice. Because one of the things that I found out I was really chasing was validation. I always wanted to be that cool person. I always wanted to be, accepted. I always wanted that sort of attention. And I got it through the alcohol and the drugs. So it reached a point where, my room was basically a place where people would come and have fun. And I always loved to be the center of attention. And because of seeking that validation, I could have sought it the right way, but it was easier to get it through drugs and alcohol. So it was out of curiosity. So the first line of cocaine I ever hit, the first heroin I ever had, and it was out of curiosity. Yeah.
All right. So the first university you left, or you were expelled?
I was expelled.
You were expelled?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So even though you were expelled, you were still accepted at a different university?
Yes, yes. Weirdly.
Did they know about your problem?
Funny thing is, they knew about my problem. But what had saved me was my grades were good the first 3 years. That was before the drugs and the alcohol became worse. And at the other university, people didn't really know that I was taking something, because I had met some Kazakhstan and Russian friends, but people just blamed it on alcohol. So for a very long time, people actually thought it was alcohol. So even when I was applying to the other university, they thought, okay, if we look at the grades and we look at where this guy is coming from, obviously, he's really worked on himself for him to go back home, and he can come through and pick it up from there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And when did the train start getting off the rails at the new university?
At the new university, it wasn't long. Yeah. So what I did at the new university was I wasn't partying. I wasn't going out, whenever they had parties or hitting the club and everything and stuff like that. But I just started using by myself. So it was very difficult for other people to spot. But by myself, like, my tolerance went high. Like, my tolerance really, really went high. And by then, I was having withdrawals, so it meant I had to use something every 4 hours.
So every 4 hours, you need to take a drug?
Yeah. Just to make people understand, when you use drugs for a very long time and use alcohol for a very long time, you'll go through withdrawals. So the simplest example and the most common example I would use is, let's say we take you and then we put you in a desert and we tell you to walk as long as you can without water, without an umbrella for shelter. And then you walk, let's say you take, the whole day, or maybe you take a couple of hours, and then you reach at your breaking point where you say, look, I'm tired, like I cannot walk any further. And, we try to push you to walk, we force you to walk and everything, but you say, look, that's it, I've given up. And then we take you and we put you in a room, and in between the room, there's a glass barrier. So a very thick glass barrier. You can see the other side, but you cannot go over the other side. And we lock the door at your end. And then the other end, somebody comes and then they put a glass of cold water. And then we ask you to say, focus on your family, focus on your career, focus on, your goals and everything else you want to do. It's impossible because in that moment, what your body wants is just that water. Anything else doesn't matter. We can offer you $1 million and everything. You'll be excited for a bit, but what your body needs in the moment is just the water. Your mind at that point will not even work. No matter what you try, you're looking at the water. So what you really need in that moment is just the water. So whenever somebody uses drugs and alcohol for a very long time, they reach a point where the body automatically calls for it. That's the addiction in it. So for me, I wanted to stop quite all right, and many people do want to stop, but it was hard. So if I didn't have anything, I would be shivering, or my lips would be shaking, or at times I would feel like stomach pains and whatnot. I would have continuous headful diarrhea. All those things were going to, and I would feel hot and cold at the same time. So I needed to have something just to feel a bit normal. Mm-hmm.
So you're dealing with all of that on your own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And who was supplying you these drugs?
I made friends. I was. The thing is, an addict can find anything anyway. Yeah. So geographical change does not really cure addiction. So what you're doing is you're taking a person from one place to another place, and then you're giving them an opportunity to start all over again and manipulate people all over again. So as a result, I got myself into a lot of debts with my fellow students, and I met some Russian connections that I was getting high with. Yeah.
So now you get expelled, and then what?
For the second time?
Yeah.
Yeah, then I come back and life kicks in. So I was battling with addiction only for that period of time. And just as it is with addiction, you can't really see what is going on. But when I came back now, it was not only addiction, but then depression came in. Because now I'm in a position where I'm looking at my friends, people I left back home, the guys that I was with over there, these guys start graduating. And, after graduation, what's next? People start moving on to the next phase of life. The people that I was studying medicine with, they go through the internship. People start, getting employed. Some of my friends from other universities and people back here, starting businesses. And you just see life moving for other people. And then it's a matter of time. People start buying cars. People start talking about building. People are getting married and the families are going on. And I look back, even my young sisters that I had left, are done with school, and pretty much people that I had left who were younger than me, everybody was doing well. So as a result, that forced me into severe depression. I was in pain, and I was angry at everybody else, but much more I was angry at myself. And I lost all hope about getting back. So that moved me to leaving home and moving to the streets. Yeah.
So you were an addict in Russia. You came back to Zambia. You didn't take drugs when you came back to Zambia.
I continued here.
You continued even here.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So all these regrets are going on. You're thinking my life should not be where it is. I should do better. My friends are doing better. But even as you're having those thoughts of regret, you're still taking drugs.
I'm still taking drugs. Because what was happening was, in that moment, I couldn't really seek help because, my family had tried. In that moment, I was stealing from my family. I was fighting physically with them. It was really, really bad. And I never found anybody with that solution to sort of get me back up. And reality became painful, which is one thing that a lot of addicts go through. So reality became very painful, and for me to live by the day, I needed to have something to be high and just forget about everything.
Like escape everything.
Yeah, just escape everything. So for me, in that moment, I was using drugs not for fun or for anything, but just to escape reality. Yeah.
How cheap are the drugs?
Very cheap. You can get heroin anywhere in Lusaka for 20 kwacha or less. You can get it in Chihuahua for lesser than that. You can get cocaine at 100 kwacha anywhere.
So in a month, how much do you need to sustain yourself on drugs?
In a month, that's too much. Let's talk about in a day. Yeah. Okay, so if you're on heroin, smoked heroin, and then you're getting at 20 kwacha a day, and then what happens is when you're using drugs, your tolerance begins to increase. So there's something called dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone, to sort of make it simpler, that gets released in your body. Okay, so dopamine is that feeling when, let's say, you receive a message of you get promoted or you receive money that you didn't
We are
expect.
pleased to inform you.
Exactly. Yeah, that same thing. And that feel good moments, those few seconds that you feel good, that's the dopamine effect. So what happens is when a person gets addicted to something, they in turn get addicted to that dopamine, the feel good effect. So naturally there are things such as food that make you feel good, and other things that make a person feel good, that arouse that dopamine naturally. But if food, let's say, for the sake of understanding, it gives you maybe 100, I think it's nanometers or something, like the little quantities, of that dopamine. Heroin will give you about 2,000.
What?
Yeah, of that feel good. It'll give you about 2,000. Alcohol is somewhere there, but heroin is the most, then followed by cocaine and these others. So that feel good is really, really nice. That's why when you get promoted and you feel good about something, that feeling lasts for quite some time. So people get addicted to the dopamine. Now, when you get addicted to the dopamine, what that means is that if you're having one, it won't be enough. You need 3 to have the same effect. And 3 won't be enough. You need 6. You need 9. So your tolerance keeps building, and you have to use more and more and more to feel that same little effect. And you're overworking your body and your mind as well. So it's sort of trying to regulate. And in that moment now, you begin to take in more quantities. So for a person like me who used to get high every 4 hours, it meant I needed to have either weed, alcohol, or I needed to have heroin. Cocaine became expensive for me at that time. Codeine was sort of affordable in then. So I would use maybe close to about 200 to 300 or 500 a day. Yeah. If I'm on heroin towards the last days in itself, it would be about 100 or 120 for me to be okay.
So you need 500 kwacha in a day?
Yeah.
Where were you getting the money? You had no job.
Stealing.
You're stealing?
Yeah, or begging.
Stealing from like what? Like stealing from family at home, or stealing handbags, phones, what?
For me, one of the things about my addiction was it was mainly at home. Yeah. So anything above 1 kwacha had to go. So the least thing that I ever sold was, I think, remotes for the batteries for the remote control. So anything above 1 kwacha had to go. If I see a laptop, I see anything, it had to go. My mom is ironing Nigerian wear and everything. If you think anything has to go. That's how bad it is.
You are stealing your parents' clothes.
Yeah, it was.
So you can raise money to buy drugs.
Yeah, it was that bad. If it wasn't that, then I resorted to begging and lying, manipulating a lot. Like addiction makes you a serial manipulator. Like an addict can con almost anybody. That's how bad it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that it affected your relationships. I'm beginning to see why. But talk to me about the damage it did to your relationships with your family, with your friends, and with your colleagues.
Okay. Whenever there's an addiction, it affects family members the most. Yeah. Because you're seeing somebody you love turn into somebody you never ever thought they'll become. So as a result, there's anger, disappointment, frustration, and hurt. It got so bad for me that at some point my dad almost wanted to give up, because he used to ask me questions like, "What do you want me to do?" Because now I'm basically helpless. Like I'm in the pulpit and I'm preaching, and you're seeing other people's children get well, but then there is your son. So if it means me settling to fix this problem that you have, then I'll so do it. And it was a big embarrassment, because my dad is well respected in the church, and he's helped save a number of souls. I mean, he's been doing this literally all my life. So it was a big embarrassment. It was a big blow to him. My mom also, she started developing conditions such as high blood pressure and all those things. My sisters were practically embarrassed of me. I had a very supportive family, but it was really, really bad. My friends also, I left, and I was that guy with a promising future, a promising career and everything. So people would look at me and they'll be surprised. And for some of them, it was out of pity that they would maybe give me something, but it was painful. It was really, really painful.
There are pictures of you that I saw that were attached to your graduation photo.
Yeah.
I'll show them on the screen so that the others can relate to them as well.
Yeah.
These photos, especially this one. I think this one is this one.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
What happened there? Like, who took that photo? Talk to me about the story there.
Actually, this was in Russia. Yeah. So what had happened was, I don't really remember very well, but I had been locked up. Yeah, I had been locked up, and I spent a night. Yeah. So when I spent a night in the cells, that's in a Russian cell, I didn't have my fix. So that caused me to.
You didn't have your what?
My fix.
What's that?
So a fix is when you take your drug in. Yeah. So, the common term is like, okay, joint, that's for the normal, cigarettes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I didn't have my fix, which means I didn't have my dosage during that time, yeah. So my cravings were super, super bad. And I remember moving along in the park and I met a couple of guys. Those are my friends. So
Yeah.
I began to drink and then I called my pusher. A pusher is somebody who sells drugs. So I called my pusher. He came through, but he only had pills. So I mixed the pills and the alcohol. And in that moment, people thought it was just alcohol, yeah. So mixed the pills and the alcohol, and then I blacked out, and then the cops found me again. So those were the peaks that some people took and the police took. And then one of the police officers was very kind. So he tried to sit me down and, he was telling me, look, this is what really happens with you. Because I couldn't say it. Yeah, for me, I would just wake up I would wake up at the stadium. I would wake up in the corridors. Sometimes I would wake up in my bed. And fellow students would, pick me up, or people that were passing around. And imagine you're in a foreign country and this is a black guy that, you're easily visible. So people would show me to say, hey, look, this is what's happening and whatnot here. So that's what happened in that moment.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So now let's come back home, away from the photo and the experience in Russia.
Yeah.
Come back home, your family is embarrassed. You said you left home and went on the street.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the street experience.
So what happened was, because my family really, really tried. But then when you have an addiction issue, you reach a point where you have to leave the people that love you the most. Okay, well, what drugs basically do is it makes you leave the people that love you the most and go respect people that are actually killing you. Yeah, and then you move to inferior environments as well as inferior companionships because you need people that will support that habit. And you have to find people that are either using more than you are or at the same pace that you're at. So as a result, I come from a Christian family. My neighborhood, nobody's really using or drinking as much as I am. So I moved in, tried to live with a couple of friends here and there, but I would end up stealing from them. Moved in with somebody else. The same thing kept happening. So it took me to the streets. And yeah, I was there for some time. Mm-hmm.
Which streets exactly? Where?
Town, Chivolia. Yeah.
Chivolia.
So I used to be in town and I never used to mug people. My friends used to do that and whatnot. But for me, it was just begging. That's the thing. Mostly females.
Just begging.
Yeah.
And you how much would you make in a day?
A lot.
A lot of money begging.
A lot.
So
for me, the trick was I would only target females. Yeah.
Why?
It was easier. It was easier. Yeah. So to get females with a watch, I'll just ask her, "Excuse me, what's the time?" And she'll tell me, and they say, "Oh, that's a nice watch. So thank you very much. Beautiful smile too. I'm asking for a 2 kwacha. It's as easy as that." And people work with compliments. People would dress up and then nobody's complimenting you. So with the females, it was easier. You just compliment her, ask for a 2 kwacha, that's it. So I'll get in town between 7 and 8. That's the time when people are, getting into town and whatnot and everything. Then I'll do the normal begging, go back to Chivolia, get my fix, come back around lunchtime when people are moving up and down and whatnot, yeah. Then I never used to like the 16 to 17 because everybody's in a rush to go home. Yeah, and by then people are tired and frustrated and everything. So that was pretty much it for me.
Okay. We focus a lot on the past, the negative.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the turning point now.
Okay.
Where does your life then begin to get better?
So during that time, I was getting arrested a couple of times. And I went to Chainama a couple of times, because of the same. Because by then, it was very difficult to find help around. So Chainama sort of became my home. And I would try to stay sober. I tried going to the farms. The farms I took to excessive weed and alcohol, came back. The defining moment for me was I had left home for, I think, over a year. Yeah, over a year. I was living with friends and whatnot. Then there was a funeral in the neighborhood. And one of my close friends passed on because of the same thing. For him, it was alcohol poisoning, yeah. I went to his funeral, and when I went there, that's the time that I met a lot of people from my neighborhood. So these are people that I grew up with. And, people were looking at me, and you could tell through somebody's eyes to say, okay, yeah, there's a lot of, people are just wondering what's going on. And for the first time, because I wasn't really, really high in that moment, but I could see, it just began to sink in. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is really, really happening. People are sort of disappointed. And other people couldn't recognize me. Other people were bypassing me. And other people were, surprised and just angry at the whole thing. And then I remember leaving the funeral, and I was walking Kuza Kumandawa, Zambia, where the new houses,
the national soccer team.
So just where Heroes is, but then this other side is called Matero North. Yeah. So I met this man, Mr. Mwanza, still a good friend of mine. He was offloading stones from his canter. So he saw me, and then he's a pretty big guy. So he called me. He's like, "Hey, come help me, piece work, pano." And then started offloading and everything. But then the thing with the drugs also is you can't work for a long time. Yeah. So I was working. Then I get a bit tired. Then I get up, stuff like that. And we started talking because he had the small radio playing, and we started talking. And then he told me, "Look, you don't sound as bad as you look. What's the story?" But I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I gave him the normal story. Life happened and this and that. So we started talking, and then we formed some sort of bond. Then he told me, "Okay, fine. I'm going to the barber shop. Your hair is a mess and everything." So I went to the barber shop, came back. The wife came in and she saw me, and then she was, like, "You're bonding with this guy and whatnot." So he explained the story to her, and she, tried talking to me, and then she was like, "Okay, yeah, he sounds, pretty smart and whatnot and everything." Yeah. So they took me in their house, had a meal, I had a shower, and after that, the man gave me 250, and the wife came out with a small suitcase of clothes. So she told me, "My brother passed on, and these are some of his clothes. So you can have them," because by then I was pretty small. So he's almost your body size and everything and stuff. I went with the suitcase, went to Pazapamandao, Zambia, lit up a cigarette. I'm with the 250. I have a bag, and that's capital for me. Like 250 is enough for me to go to the G is Chiwalia, get high, and have a suitcase of clothes which I'm going to sell and get high. And in that moment, I opened the suitcase, and clothes were there. They were looking really, really good. Not old and whatnot. Yeah. So in that moment, I began to lit up a cigarette, and I was smoking, and I was happy. I've worked, so this is what's up. I'll go get high by myself, and it'll be good. But then something happened where life just started kicking in. I began to go through life, and then I was like, okay, so a couple of years ago I was holding dollars, and now I'm here celebrating the 250 with a dead person's clothes who I've never even met. And I just got so emotional in that moment, and I was thinking through life and whatnot, but I felt it was too late because I had burnt so many bridges. Yeah. Now at home, it felt like I was almost never wanted, despite the love that they always showed me. With my friends, I had stolen a lot. Some of the people on the streets also didn't want me. So for me, I was just like, okay, whatever. In my addict mind, of course, 250 plus clothes, went, saw the clothes. Next thing I woke up, it was, I just woke up, and apparently I'd blacked out. Yeah. So I blacked out. The cowboys got me, saved me, and then they put me aside. People walking by, and then they're like, Nichi Jankichi, because they knew me. Yeah. And it so happened in that moment that one little girl was passing by because it started raining. Then she's like, yo mama maningi, it's like ufuna zipa. So in the parade, is akubunga moto then uzaf. And as funny as it sounds, those words to me made sense. Like, I think this is what I need to do. So that's why I got to the point where sometimes I understand people who commit suicide, because sometimes it feels like when you go, you lessen the pain for yourself as well as the people around you. So in that moment, I was like, okay, what really am I going back to? I've been telling my parents I want to change, and I've been failing. How many chances are they going to give me? I didn't even know if I had another chance left, because I had caused so much pain. And by then, my mom wasn't really feeling okay. She was a bit sick. So my dad was in and out and whatnot. And I just had nowhere to go. The person I was living with also had messed up, my friends and whatnot. So I was thinking of committing suicide in that moment. And then as I was walking, that's the time that my mom pulled up, and she carried me home. She had been looking for me for quite some time. So I went home, struggled with addiction because I felt I could stop by myself. Struggled with addiction for some time, up until my dad said one thing to me, and he's the one that initiated the change. He told me something that I always tell addicts. He told me, look, you are not the problem, but your addiction is what's causing problems in your life. Yeah. So look at your top 10 problems. Your addiction is there. Your top 5, it's there. Your top 3, it's there. Your top single problem, and what has caused so much pain and what has brought you to this extent, it's your addiction. And for me, that's when I started looking at things a bit differently. And for the first time, I said, hey, look, I need help. And the time I said I need help, like, I was surprised. Packed the little belongings that we had, following there on a bus, we headed to Zimbabwe. And the whole time, it was a 24-hour journey, because I think by then there was an issue with transportation. So I was shivering, I was shaking, and then that's the time that he took me to rehab. I was in rehab for some time. That's where my transformation started. So he would come to the rehab every Sundays to, speak to us and whatnot and everything. So I got his line, and I told him, look, I want you to help me when I'm done, because I'm going to a country where, there's pretty much people that I don't know are in recovery and whatnot. So when I came back, he told me, you need to find people that are going through what you're going through, and you need to help them, because that's how you're going to keep your sobriety. And you cannot give away something that you do not have. And if you don't do that, you're going to easily go back. So the trick for me was I needed to watch, people, places, things. Those are the things that he told me. He said, look, if you want to change your life around, watch the people you mingle with, the places you go to, and the things that you do. Because drugs and alcohol control 90% of the people you mingle with, the places you go to, and what you do. So that had to change. And in that moment, I found a couple of people that, I started working with them and helping them. It was very difficult for my friends. It's really difficult to help somebody that's close to you. I don't know why it's like that, but that's how it is. So I found a couple of people that I was working with, and, the guys were sort of changing. And it was at a slower rate, of course, because they didn't have rehab. But they sort of started changing, and in that I was like, I had thought about it in rehab, but then I was like, okay, I think this is what I really, really need to do, because I connected with people, and by then there were really no rehabs around. So that's how it started. So I had been working with people, I left home, moved to Berlin because that was near school. And even in Berlin, I started working with addicts, and then I could see these guys transforming and changing. And then I began to pick up interest. I started educating myself, reading more, started reading more about mental health, attending meetings and whatnot, and more of understanding the addiction setup in Zambia. And it was up until I helped someone, one of the very first guys that I helped. And after, he went back to SA to finish his studies. He's a doctor now. Doing extremely well, yeah. So he went off to finish his studies. And when he came back, he had been looking for me because we had sort of lost contact. Not really lost contact, but when I help a person and they go ahead and build their life, of course, they have other friends and whatnot and everything. So we're not communicating that much. So when this guy graduated, he really, really wanted to see me so much. But I think I was having exams at that time, so I couldn't really see him. So after we sat down with the parents, they're like, okay, what's the plan for this? What's your next phase? I used to going to be helping people and whatnot. So I say, no, the plan is to, start a rehab and whatnot. So we sat down, we're talking figures, and that's how everything started. Yeah.
So your former, well, I don't know if you call them patients, but your former, someone that you helped,
yeah,
then out of gratitude came back and helped you establish the rehab.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how's that going?
It's going good, yeah. And besides that, there's also somebody, a partner that's really, really been very supportive because they saw my dream. For them, I helped out somebody, but then the person eventually passed on because of the same. But then they apparently saw the passion and whatnot and everything, so we also got together. And it's going really well. It's going
How
good.
many people have you helped so far?
Quite a number.
Quite a number.
Yeah, quite a number. Mm. Quite a number. And I'm still working with a number of them. Yeah.
Your graduation,
Mm-hmm.
what was the emotion running in your mind? I mean, what were you feeling? What was the emotion like?
It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was really unbelievable. Because I think I got emotional at some point because I got expelled, and I'm supposed to be dead right now. Looking at how I was using and how bad it was, if I'm not supposed to be dead, either in hospital, battling from side effects of the same, or we're still in prison because it became really, really bad. And I remember going for graduation, and I had to pack. I had to pack for a bit, and just started thinking through life, and then I got emotional. I even dropped a tear, and it was amazing. And even up when I went there, and then met everybody in the gowns and the whatnot. It was, for me personally, it was huge. I have videos. I was dancing in the hall. I was happy. I was calling people. My family, they were happy. They're still happy for me than than I am. So it was an emotional moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it really should have been. When you got clean,
Yeah.
After your rehab in Zimbabwe and coming back home to Zambia, have you ever had a moment where you were tempted to go back to that life? Or even just to test alcohol or to just take a drug?
No. Yeah. Not at all. Because for me, it was really, really bad. Yeah. It was really, really bad. I think after, I have more reasons to stay sober than to go back. That's the thing. Of course, what would be happening was because I'm human, I get angry, I get upset and whatnot and everything. But there are times where I see okay, fine, because it all starts with emotions. There are times where I say, okay, emotionally I'm not okay, then I call my sponsor or I call somebody to reach out to. Yeah. So in those moments, because what happens is before you get to the actual using drugs, you get in the phase where, emotionally a bit unstable and whatnot and everything. That's where you start seeking pleasure in other things. So you don't just relapse boom and everything. You don't easily go back. So people relapse. It can even take somebody can relapse today, and yet they relapsed a couple of months ago emotionally. So whenever I'm emotionally not sound, I always reach out for help and whatnot. Yeah.
How easy is it to give up drugs?
It's quite difficult, but it's easier if a person wants to. It's very, very easy if a person wants to. Yeah.
Okay. And have you mended most of your relationships that you were broken down during your drug phase?
Some, yes. Some are still reaching out. Other people don't want anything to do with me. That's the part that sucks about addiction. Yeah.
They still can't believe you've changed.
Yeah. Other people just say, look, let's let bygones be bygones. Whatever happened, happened, but I don't really feel I need you in my life anymore because what you did still hurts. Yeah. So, and of course, there's some people that I can never connect to because maybe they passed on and whatnot and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
for the relationships that I need, I've done well so far.
So if there are some people that are watching the podcast right now and maybe they have a loved one that is going through what you went through, what advice would you give to them?
My advice to them would be don't give up because when you're dealing with somebody who's got an addiction, like I said, it hurts the family members the most because you're seeing somebody you love turn into somebody you never ever thought they'll become. So you're pain, you're angry. There's the pain, the embarrassment. The person is stealing from you. You are spending sleepless nights. It's costly. It's expensive. Everything comes together. But my advice to you is you need to remember that you're okay, but that person is not. Emotionally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, that person is not in the right frame of mind. Okay? So you have to be extremely patient with them. And the same way that you would take somebody who's got malaria to the hospital is the same way that you can take somebody who's got an addiction to the professionals to work with them. I understand we are more of a spiritual country, and allow me to say this. My own dad is a pastor. But the mistake that a lot of people make is they say, you have to get to God to get rid of your addiction. It doesn't work that way. If somebody's stealing or fornicating or doing whatever it is, they tell them stop the stealing and stop the fornication, and that's how you get closer to God. But for addiction, people say get closer to God to get rid of the addiction. It doesn't work that way. So you really have to work with the addiction first, and it's a three-way thing. It's a mental, a spiritual, as well as a physical thing. So seek help for the person while you're doing the prayers and whatnot, but don't give up on the person. Keep trying and trying and trying. It's it takes a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And where do you see yourself and your center, let's say in the next 5 years?
The next
because
5
your
years
center is relatively new.
Yes. The next 5 years, because we're looking at expanding, so we may have one or two, maybe by the end of the year or so. Yeah. There's been an increase in the number of females that are using, so we're looking into opening something specifically for females. We're also looking at expanding and starting with recovery homes as well as branching out into all provinces. I'm really glad that there's a government rehab that's been built as well, but then that won't encompass everybody because the rate at which the drug dealers are moving is really, really quick. So I'd like to have one or two in every province as well.
What's the name of your center again?
Sanity House.
What?
Sanity House.
Sanity House.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We've got community house, sanity house, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my last question, the usual. What would your top 5 advice be? Like 5 pieces of advice that you'd like to give to people who are in a point where, you feel like there's no hope.
Yeah.
You said you're almost thinking of just, going on the road and having a car hit you and, your life is gone. And there are people who are at that level, at the brink of losing it all and just giving up on everything. What advice would you give to them?
My top one would be, I always say this one, don't look at your age and don't look at the time that has passed or the time that you feel you've wasted. You have energy and you have health. That's all that matters. So whatever it is that you're going through, as long as you're able to get up and do, health is classified by you doing daily activities and whatnot. So if you still have the strength to get up, you're still in the same, you're still in a still mental frame and you're still able to go about and do other things and whatnot and everything, then trust me, you have health and you have energy. That's all you need. Yeah. The other thing also is you just don't give up. Keep trying, keep pushing. Yeah. Just don't give up. Keep trying, keep pushing. And the other thing also is invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. For me to get here, I had to learn more about addiction. I had to change the people that speak into my life. And honestly, when you called me, I couldn't really believe it. Because I've been learning a lot from you. I've been following you, and you're one of the people that I hold highly. So the people that are speaking into your life, just keep learning. Keep learning. Don't quit. Just keep learning. Yeah. And one of the things is everybody in life goes through a crashing moment. Life will hit you. Life will come and hit you hard, no matter what. Right now, as we are speaking, my story is addiction. Somebody might not care about it, but somebody else is going through a terrible divorce. Somebody just lost a child. Somebody just lost a job in this moment. Somebody, is hurting because they've lost a lot of money financially. Somebody's battling with a health issue. So life comes in to kick everybody. And if it hasn't happened, it's coming. So you may be going through that moment in your life where, you think this is it, but it's supposed to be a process. It's not permanent. So you have to move on. You have to hold on. And above all, God is there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great way to end our conversation. For me, what really attracted me to your story is the fact that it's possible. And I feel like for me, that's the important thing. That's the highlight, that it can change.
Yes.
Because most people, to be honest, and we've seen a lot of them who've just given up,
Mm-hmm.
And why I wanted us to have this conversation is so that we can help others still have a life, even though it's been very dark a period for them. Because others may think about committing suicide, but your story then gives them hope.
Yes.
And that's why I always tell people to say, look, for me, these conversations I have are not really about having conversations with famous people that we know, but even ordinary Zambians have good stories that are really valuable and can really change other people's lives. And for me, I feel like your life is a testimony. You mentioned the spirituality aspect of Zambia and whatnot, but I feel like, to be honest, it's not really about church or religion and whatnot. It's about your life being a ministry on its own. Just the things that you've done, the things you're going through, and your willingness to even help others. And I feel like there's no one better placed to run a rehab than someone like you. Because you understand when people struggle to, get better, you understand. Others, you do fukush. You're angry, you're what, you start exchanging words with your patients. And at the end of the day, what are you achieving? So I felt like for me, this was a good story. And we need more stories like yours.
Thank you.
And I feel like these are the kinds of stories that really deserve to be told. And I'm very grateful that you spared the time. And I look forward to having more conversations like this also, not just with you, but with other people also who, have this kind of life along their trajectory. So thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so very much.
There are some, like I said, not everyone will come to you and say thank you.
Yes.
But they always, think of you. The same way the guy from SF thought about you and says, I must meet that person.
Yeah.
It's a story in the Bible of Jesus, where this woman, was healed and she has to come back and it was a Jesus story. There was a story in the Bible where, like, they were healed. The lepers.
Yes,
The lepers?
yes,
Then
yeah.
one came back and said, no, thank you so much. But not everyone will come back and say thank you.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, your life would have contributed to theirs, and they'll never forget you. So keep doing what you're doing,
Thank
Daniel.
you so very much. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. We're talking to Daniel Mbazima. I don't even know how to describe the story, but I'm sure you appreciate it, and I hope that it also resonates with you. Whether you take drugs or not, whether you've been through his path or not, like you said, you may be battling a divorce, battling something, and you feel like it's the end of you, this is going to take your life. He's shown you that you can turn anywhere. You can create a corner and make it right anywhere. Please share the video. You never know who's going to learn from this. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in our next episode.